Hey, I just want to do a quick little recap of how I teach ripping a board using a Japanese pole saw because a lot of students struggle with this. And so just how I go through the process. So I talk about like the thickness of the kerf of the blade. We want to go right up to that line, but we want to make sure that the blade is on the waist side of that cut. So I often will use the blades on these things are really thin, so I'm usually using, I'll use like a straight edge from a square because this has got quite a bit thicker material, so I'll demonstrate how I will put the blade right on that line with the bulk of the blade on the waist side. So what I do is I get that clamped up pretty aggressively raked towards me, almost practically level with the ground. And I'll use the cross-cut side just to make that starting nick. The reason why is because if we're using the ripping side, the teeth are spaced widely enough apart where it kind of tends to chatter and sometimes skip around, and this at least gets us started. So I'll put my blade right on that line, again, with the bulk on the waist side. I use my thumb just kind of stabilize, and then I'll just do a little cut like that, nothing more. Now the next step is I will flip it over to the ripping side, and I will race down. All I want to do is just practically erase that with my saw blade. So like I'm establishing this cut, and that's all I'm doing. I'm using my thumb to help guide the saw blade and just taking off that cut. And you can see I'm doing a very shallow cut. I'm really just kind of establishing that cut. I'm going down not a lot further than a 1/4 inch. Now I got that, I will tip it up on end, and I'm going to do the same thing here. Just like line. Once I have that, I can now kind of put it at a more comfortable 45 degrees and go ahead and rip this down. What this is done is this actually acts a little bit like a jig where it's kind of holding or helping guide the blade in that cut. And I can continue to rip that down, trusting that saw blade kerf is going to follow the kerf. The other thing I always point out is make sure that you're using the entire length of the blade. Take advantage of that. I'm always choked up on the blade, pinching this blade like it's a chef's knife, so I have nice control over it. These blades tend to be very floppy, so if you're holding it out here, it's even more floppy. And when I see students standing way back here sawing, I always tease that it's not a spectator sport. You have to be right up on the cut, especially because these are tapered out, so it's going to be cutting down to line first on this way. And once I have that, I will flip it over, and I will repeat the process. The reason why I start over on this side is because if we are off the mark, then it gives us a little chance to reset. And so I will just do the exact same thing. I'm going to use my thumb to help stabilize that really floppy blade on that cut and just take that off. Now I have that, I can flip it up on end, finish the cut, and go right down. The last step, of course, is you put it straight up and down, and this is where I joke that we now have all the work is done for us, so I always make a joke about now at this point is where you can reach for your beer and take a long swig, or you just kind of do this with your eyes closed. Of course, you do want to really not, because we're going down right to that spot there, and because these are tapered out, it's going to hit that mark first. So I'll be kind of lean over the work here, getting that right down to the mark, and then come back and look on this side, and once I'm happy, we're done. And that is how we do a pretty straight cut all the way around. It's pretty difficult to, inherently, especially without a lot of practice, to get straight line cuts, but that's a trick that seems to help when students follow that.